Hello, everyone. I'm Jo Brand. Nice to be talking to you today. Right, now, what I've done with these questions is I've been through them and I've just answered the easy ones. So I hope that's all right with you. If you want to ask me any really difficult ones, you can try putting them in the chat, but I may well ignore them. Just to tell you, I am a stand-up comic. I've been one for 32 years. Before that, I was a nurse for 10 years. I have two teenage daughters and I have a husband. I think that's as much as you need to know, really, because we haven't got a huge amount of time. So let's start on your questions, okay? And your first question comes from Philippa Moxham at Durham Sixth Form Centre. And she says, I'm interested in what you think the public view is of teachers and how they are portrayed both in the media and especially in comedy. Well, obviously, teachers are of interest to me because I had a lot when I was a kid, and also my daughters both go to school as well. I didn't home educate them. And I think what your attitude towards teachers is really kind of dependent on, to some extent, what your politics are, I suppose. I'm going to keep just to comedy, I think, because I think some people think teaching is kind of a hotbed of Marxist Leninism, and some people just think teachers are very hardworking people. I was a school governor for 5 years, so I kind of got to know quite a lot of teachers, and I got on all right with them, got on well with them. And I think they do a really, really difficult job. Now, as far as comedy is concerned, I think there are so many different portrayals of teachers in comedy. And one programme which is not a comedy, but it is comical sometimes, which I think has really changed people's attitude towards teachers, are the two shows, Educating Essex and Educating Yorkshire. Because I think what they did was they gave people a pretty accurate picture of the lives of teachers in kind of modern secondary education. And I mean, I know there's like the filter of the camera there. So obviously teachers aren't going to be exactly as they would be. But I would say, you know, it's pretty good representation. Things like Bad Education, I personally think that they're just kind of comedies and they're not particularly reflective of how education actually is. And to me, with comedy, really, it doesn't matter that much unless it's wildly inaccurate, how accurate it is, as long as it's funny. And from my point of view, two of my favourite comedians are Greg Davis and Ramesh Ranganathan. Both of them were teachers, and both of them are hilarious, in my opinion. And I kind of wish I'd been taught by them because I'd like to have seen how they did it. Okay, right. The next question is from Yasmin Chavik. I hope that's right. I'm guessing at that pronunciation there, from Dixon's Allerton Academy, and she asks, "What has made you laugh during lockdown?" Well, lots of things, to be honest. Home slapstick. I fell down the stairs with a cup of tea yesterday, and we've got a mirror at the bottom of our stairs, so I saw myself, so that was quite good fun. That was some good comedy. In terms of things I've been watching, I'm kind of into the whole sort of political picture of how the government and the opposition are managing during lockdown. And so the people I particularly like at the moment are Jonathan Pye. He's a character, he plays a character of a news presenter, and his bits to camera are not really used, but it's the bits in between. So when he's speaking to his director about what his thoughts are, and he has actually been in lockdown, and I think they've been really funny. And the other comic I really loved during lockdown is a woman called Sarah Cooper, and what she does is she lip syncs Donald Trump speeches, and it's really funny. But I can also see that he would be really irritated that a black woman is taking the mick out of him, and they are really funny as well. Okay, what have I got next? I've just realised that I've read the wrong person with the wrong question. I knew I'd messed it up quite early on, so at least I got that out of the way. The what made me laugh was actually from Tom. It says Thomasina White, but I think it's probably Thomasina White from Parkside School. So apologies for that, Thomasina. Yasmin Chavik's question is actually, how are you managing with lockdown? Are you bored yet? No. Okay, not at all. I don't get bored. I've got plenty to do. So sorry, that's such a boring answer. Moving on. On to Andy Eccles, who's from Springwell Alternative Academy, Grantham. If your question's really unprofessional and rude, I may not read out your name, just in case your bosses might watch a recording of this. So don't panic. Right, Andy says, what did I want to do while I was at school? Hardly original, but appropriate. Well, yes, Andy. What did I want to do when I was at school? I wanted to be a doctor or the Prime Minister or a comedian. And I think probably some people would argue I'm not any of those. Okay, right, now we have Julie Bowler-Smith, who's from Bilton Junior School. This is quite a long question about baking, so I'm going to praise it. Basically, what's my favourite cake bin that I've baked during lockdown? And she tells me about her favourite cake. And sorry to disappoint you, Julie, if you like baking, but I haven't baked a cake during lockdown. And the reason I haven't is because I don't really like baking. And I don't particularly like cakes that much either. The sort of cake I do like, which I'm quite embarrassed to admit, is I like one of those sort of ersatz kind of, children's party cakes that are full of E numbers and that would help you to see in the dark if you turn the lights off. And I will just tell you very briefly a quick story, because my husband always buys me like really posh patisserie cakes for my birthday. I don't really like them because, well, the worst thing is that they've got a sort of layer on top of them that always looks like clear phlegm to me. I've no idea what it is, and it always puts me off. So for once, a couple of years ago, I decided to buy my own cake, and I went down to the local supermarket, ordered one, and they said it was a caterpillar. It was like green and yellow. And they said, do you want to put an inscription on it? So I thought, for a laugh, because I was having a few friends around, those are the days, I put, just to make them laugh, and it was I think it was my 58th birthday or whatever it was. You are a very old woman and you're going to die soon. I don't know why I thought that's hilarious. I just did. And I went back to collect the cake after I'd ordered it a couple of weeks later, opened the box to check it was my cake. It was my cake. It was the yellow and green caterpillar. But on it, it said, "Happy Retirement, Wendy." And still to this day, I don't know whether Wendy got my inscription or not. And I hope she didn't, because hers obviously said, "You're a very old woman and you're going to die soon." So if anyone ever comes across Wendy, will you apologise or will someone let me know? Okay, thank you. Right, next question. Now, Sir Ken Gibson, who set me up for all this, he Why did I call him Sir? I don't know. Sir Ken, are you watching at the moment? I'm sure you are. He has. He's from Hearton Academy, which you probably all might know. I don't know. He says, "Can I share with members some funny experiences during lockdown?" Well, I've already told you about falling down the stairs. Particularly around my hilarious online quizzes that I've mentioned to him. Well, I have done quite a lot of online charity quizzes during lockdown, and they have really been good fun. And what happens is that obviously you get sort of chats, on the side of the page, and people kind of will send you messages and say, "Can you give a shout out to my grandma," and all that sort of thing. And I'm only too happy to do that. But one particular one I did a few weeks ago, what they tried to do is they tried to sneak rude parts of the body or rude words past me disguised as people's names. And I think in the space of about an hour, I had about 20 coming past me, and I prided myself that I'd actually weeded all of them out until I fell at the last hurdle, and I said, "I'd like to give a shout out to Martha Farquhar," which obviously is, I'm not going to say what it was meant to be, but obviously I think you can all work out what it was meant to be, and I think they were very pleased that they got one past me. Okay, hope that's all right for you, Ken. Right, next one. I'm trying to get through these as fast as I can to cover as many as I can, and also some of them I kind of group together, so that sort of kind of brackets like 3 or 4 questions. This is from Louise Stuart Smith, this one at Tunbridge Wells Girls Grammar School. And she's put, "No question, just a flag that this is Joe's old school." So I'm not talking about myself in the third person. Well, I did there, but I don't normally do that because that's weird, isn't it, when people do that? So it is my old school, and I just wanted to actually ask you a question. I'm sure someone will answer it for me. Ken might answer it for me, but I was brought up in a very rural area of Kent, and our nearest, it was a secondary modern school in those days, was about 7 or 8 miles away, and it was kind of 20 minutes or so on the bus. And we still had grammar schools then in the county of Kent. Well, everyone had them then. And the nearest grammar school was about 25 miles away, and that was a 2.5 hour bus ride each way. So my parents chose to send me to the local secondary modern. And what happened, and I am blowing my own trumpet here, but it's part of the story, so I have to. What happened was, after a couple of terms at school, I was asked to go and see the head teacher, and they asked me, and I was supposed to discuss it with my parents, what I would think about going up 2 years. So from year 7 now to year 9. Because I was kind of ahead of most people in my class. And what actually happened was my mum and dad decided not that they didn't want me to do that, thank God, because I didn't want to do it either. Imagine some upstart little twatty 11-year-old, going up to year 9. So they moved me to this school in Tunbridge Wells, and that meant that I got the bus at 6:30 in the morning, and I got home about 6:30, 7 o'clock at night. And what I was going to ask was, if anyone wants to tell me the answer to this, would that still happen these days? Would a child that was, a bit bratty and, precocious, would they be put up a couple of years, or would sort of teachers be aware of the fact that, they might get bullied and try not to do that? Thank you. That's my one question. Okay, moving on. This is from Rebecca Coupland at Rushcliffe School, and she says, will there be an extra slice this year? The honest answer is I actually don't know. I mean, I think the signs are reasonably positive, but I think it's a kind of a wait and see thing, like it is with everything, really. And then Rebecca then goes on to say, do you have any tips on how to cheer up and add fun to our school virtual book club? We have had them baking already. Oh Lord, I kind of live in fear of this sort of question because I'm not really a particularly fun sort of person. But I would say if that was me and I was in a book club and I wanted someone to make it more fun, I would try and kind of personalize things a bit more, or ask some questions which perhaps, people can relate to, but which aren't sort of too heavy about the book. So I don't know, things like, if you were making a film of this book, who would you choose to be the main characters? Or can you sum this book up in one tweet? Or who would you most like to kill in this book? Something like that. I don't know. Just get people's opinion without making them feel that they're being asked kind of too academic a question. Okay. Right. Next question. Right. There are several questions. Rose, Sam, and another person that I'll pick up later. But there are several questions about mental health, because that was my profession. What kind of mental health issues can we expect from the children that we can prepare for? Has being a psychiatric nurse helped you with your mental health through lockdown? Okay, I would say being a psychiatric nurse hasn't particularly helped me, no, but I describe myself as a positive person who's fairly emotionally blunted. So I tend to kind of, bumble through life being relatively cheerful. And I think your personality does have quite a lot to do with it, whether your attitude is positive or not. So that will kind of feed in. Obviously, in terms of, that's my daughter making a weird noise, you can't hear it. Sorry. What kind of issues could you perhaps expect from the children? Well, I think the thing is that we all know that during lockdown, for example, there's been a big increase in incidents of domestic violence. I think it's gone up somewhere between 40 and 60%. So I think you will have some children that are perhaps traumatized by their experience. You will just have children who are upset because they found the whole experience stressful. And in my opinion, I don't really think there are enough kind of mental health services in schools because there's not enough money. But I do think that the counsellors that they have in schools and the mental health representatives do an amazing job. And I would say the best ways to find out what's going on is observation of a child's behaviour. Has it changed? Does a normally kind of garrulous kid not seem themselves? Are they much quieter and withdrawn? Or are they more aggressive? Are they more difficult to deal with? All those sorts of things should be like little flags to tell you that something's going wrong there. And I think once you've got to the point where you've asked them if they're okay, at that point, if you have the relevant services available, it's kind of time for professionals to get involved. So that's as far as I'm going to go on answering that question, or it'll all be kind of a bit too technical maybe. And bear in mind there is CAMS, which is the mental health services for children and adolescents. Unfortunately, the whole mental health services to me are underfunded, and they all struggle. So you just need to be aware of maybe having to have a holding operation if a child is waiting a very long time for an appointment. Okay. Okay. Yes, this is from Ria Louise, or is it Louise Ria? Could be either of those ways around. She's from Dane Court Grammar School. She says, soon we'll be back teaching new classes full of new faces. If you could give us teachers one piece of advice to get our student audience on side from the first meeting, what would it be? Well, I cheated and I asked my daughter, who's 17 and she's at home during lockdown. So she gave me 3 pieces of advice. One is, don't set any homework on the first day that you meet those people. Apparently that goes down a storm. Get to know people's names and who people are as quickly as you can, because pupils really appreciate that. And also she says, and I may not be being wise here, she really likes funny teachers who muck about and do jokes. But I'm not advising you to do that. I'm just telling you that's what she said to me. Okay. Oh, that's right. And a few people have asked me, actually, just to add on to that, Rob Horton has just added as one of his questions, where has humour gone in the world of education? Because of high stakes, accountability, performance management, observation, compliance, etc., humour's kind of been drained out. I personally think, Rob, from the stories I hear, that there are ways around that, and so I hope you find them. Okay, yes, have a couple of questions here from Julia Letchworth and Kate Porter. What's your fondest memory from your school days? Well, actually, my fond memories from my school days are all kind of very generalised, like having a laugh with my friends. So I just want to use this time briefly to say I think traumatic memories from school are really important, because I have quite a few, and these stay with you forever. And obviously my school experience, I was at primary school in the 60s, you know, are very different, and things have really changed a lot. But I think it is worth thinking about. 2 things. First of all, in my primary school, one day the headmaster got very angry with a boy, and he asked him to go and get his shoe bag with his little PE kit off his peg. The boy brought it back, and the headmaster swung it round his head and as hard as he could, and then hit the kid round the head with it. And I would say that traumatized the whole class, because it looked like it really, really hurt. It was appalling. And as a pupil, I was fairly well behaved, but the headmistress didn't really like me. She was married to the headmaster. And one day I put my hand up twice in one morning, asked to go to the toilet. And in front of everyone, she said, you've asked twice, why don't you just start bringing a potty into school? And of course, the whole class laughed and thought it was hilarious. And I felt really humiliated by that and stopped asking to go completely, and then got a terrible infection. No, I didn't. I'm making that up. But what I'm saying is that in my book, obviously violence doesn't exist in schools anymore. Thank God for that. But also teaching pupils by humiliating them in front of everyone else, to me, is not the way forward. And, you know, my brother has stories, and in every kid's past, there are stories of that they always remember, rather than remembering the fond bits. So anyway, okay, moving on. Okay, how are we doing for time? Right, I'm watching the time. It's my battery's fine. I was a bit worried my battery's going to run down on my laptop because I've got this plugged into my router. That's as much technical knowledge as I've got. Okay, this is from Jennifer Marshall Busawan, and she's from St Hilda's, or St Hilda's, is it? I don't know. C of E school in Hartlepool. I love Hartlepool, by the way. I've been on tour to Hartlepool loads of times. I've always had a really great time there. Okay. What is your advice for staying positive when in isolation? Well, I would say from my own personal point of view, it is just realizing, which I think is quite hard for a lot of us to do, how lucky I am compared to loads of other people. I live in a nice house, I've got a garden, and I'm very aware that a lot of people don't have nice houses and they're on the 20th floor of tower blocks. So if I can't keep positive with what I've got, well, I deserve to be, I don't know, put in prison. And I would say for other people, one of my mottos in life, really, and I think it applies to my job very strongly, but it applies to lots of other people's lives as well, is lower your expectations. Because I think one thing that happens with people is they just expect far too much. And when it doesn't happen for them, they're disappointed and it makes them miserable. I know a lot of comedians who wanted to be far further along success-wise in their lives at certain points. And actually, they were, objectively speaking, doing really well. And they were really fed up all the time because they hadn't landed that American sitcom, or, they hadn't done a world tour. Whereas with me, I didn't really have a plan. And so anything that came along was a bonus. And, to still be saying that after 32 years, say no more in some ways. Okay, right. This one is from Helen. I'm wondering about Helen Birkenhead. That is actually a place as well. Is that your right name, Helen? I'm sorry if it's not. From Chatsworth High School and Community College. And your question is, any tips for a head teacher trying to keep staff spirits up in challenging times? I try my best, but, well, it's very difficult, isn't it? I mean, the only thing I can equate it to really is when I was in charge of a psychiatric emergency clinic in southeast London. I'm not implying anything by saying that. I'm saying that that's the only position of responsibility that I've ever held. And trying to keep morale up in any kind of stressful environment, which schools are, which hospitals are, which so many institutions are, is not very easy, really. And I think it just falls upon you because of the position you're in, Helen, just to be as relentlessly positive as you can, but not to the point where you annoy everyone with your positivity. So that position is somewhere in between, like Tigger and I don't know who's below it, but Betsy Trotwood, maybe, from David Copperfield. Just try and be as positive as you can. And I think also one thing that doesn't happen that often in some places is ask the staff what would make their lives better, really. And I know a lot of teachers do feel kind of under siege, and they're, I'm not going to preach to you because you're teachers and I'm not. So I won't say any more because I'm just expressing an opinion. But I've always been a Democrat, so I always used to find out what the staff wanted, and as best I could, without being able to buy them all a car, do that thing. Okay. Right. Okay. This next one, again, it's a very long question. It's from Juliet Porter from Alves Church, Church of England Middle School. and she talks about having a mental health issue and being assigned a CPN whose behaviour was difficult to understand at the time, and she realised afterwards that the nurse was going through the menopause, and wishes she'd been a bit more kind of sympathetic maybe towards her. She asked me, in the line of duty as a psychiatric nurse, do you remember any situations whereby you had to metaphorically lie back and think of England? Well, yeah, I'm glad you said that was a metaphor. So a situation where I just got on with it, regardless of the impact on myself, loads. But one that particularly springs to my mind is when I was a student nurse, I did 6 months on a ward for the elderly, and we used to do quite a lot of community visits. And one day I was sent home for the day with an elderly woman, and I had to kind of assess her skills at home. Was she safe? Was she aware of kind of leaving gas rings on? Could she make a cup of tea? Could she make a kind of simple meal? It was all that sort of thing. Anyway, I was dropped off by the minibus driver at 9 o'clock in the morning, and he was due to pick me up at 3. No mobile phones or anything in that day. In those days, she didn't have a phone in her flat or anything. Anyway, we got into her flat. Her problem was she had an illness which made her very paranoid. So as soon as we got into her flat, she just pushed loads of furniture up against the door as if we were under siege. And I should add at this point that she was built like a brick. Well, you know what I mean. She was in her mid-70s, but she was like really tough as old boots, kind of, Cockney. And so I said to her, don't push all the furniture up against the door. And I started to move it. And she lamped me so hard in the face that I nearly fell over, and it really, really hurt. And so I said, oh, okay. All right, I won't do that anymore. And basically, I had to stay there for 6 hours with her, trying not to get assaulted again. And it wasn't easy, but I just had to carry on and fill the time and think of things to do. And eventually, the minibus driver, who she knew, came back, knocked at the door. She told him to F off. And he said to me, let me in the window. So I managed to open the window with her just kind of punching me from behind. So I think, I didn't have quite a few. I had very few situations that were that difficult to manage. And I was very inexperienced, so that didn't help either. Right, now it's 11:35. I'm supposed to be finishing at 11:30, but if you're all right, I'll just try and finish off here. I think I've got two more questions. Okay. Nigel Burks from St Paul's. Tell me the truth about cake. Nigel, what can I tell you? I've already said I don't really like cake very much, and to me there's no truth about cake. I don't really know why people like baking. I can't work it out. My husband's quite good at cooking and baking, and he has tried to get me interested. And one day he said, look, I'll make a rhubarb crumble and you make the custard. I was like, oh God, all right. Anyway, so off we went. And I think just for cliche's sake, he said to me, I'm not going to put any more sugar in this because you're sweet enough. And I said, well, I'm not going to put any more corn flour in my custard because you're thick enough. Anyway, that's the way to keep a lovely relationship going. Okay, right. Last question from From Bridie Rutherford. Do you think all children should be given access to laptops for their education? Yes. Well, that's a very positive note to finish on, isn't it? Right. All I can say is that I hope that you've enjoyed listening to this. You all know how weird Zoom is. You're just sitting in your front room, just talking at a screen. I don't even know if any of you are there, how many of you have dropped off, how many of you have gone home. Well, you are home, aren't you? So you haven't gone home. You just maybe turn me off. I don't know. But I'd like to thank Ken for asking me. It's been very enjoyable for me. I hope you've enjoyed it a bit. I'm sorry I'm not an expert on education. I think I made that clear at the beginning. So I hope it's been of some value. And I would just say finally, if any of you have teenagers, I think the thing to do with teenagers is to try not to get wound up by them, really. I know that's easier said than done. There's kind of a lot of sneering goes on, isn't there, with teenagers? And my second motto, apart from lower your expectations, is appreciate and enjoy the sneering. Because for me, it's kind of quite comedy in a way. I mean, I said to my daughter recently, she was talking about getting in touch with someone, and I said, "Oh, why don't you just pop them off an email?" And she went like that. And I went, "What?" She said, "Because I'm not 100 years old, Mum." Anyway, I thought that was hilarious. Thanks for listening, and I hope you've enjoyed it. Bye.